Welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta, and we're joining you live from the CNN News 18 and Federal Bank Primetime Studio. The Monsoon Session of Parliament began today, and on day one of the session, Prime Minister Narendra Modi once again made it clear that all his government wants is debate but not disruption. The Prime Minister, while speaking about the inaugural Parliament session after general elections, slammed the opposition for even blocking out his voice for more than 2 hours during his speech. His main message is that elections are over and we need to move on. Remember, this session is as important as it gets. The new Modi government's first budget will be presented tomorrow and set the roadmap for the next 5 years. The opposition, however, maintains that the government is not responding or speaking on quote-unquote real issues like need, unemployment, price rise, etc. So is it fair that they are insisting on these debates first and foremost, even though there is slotted business? Or should debate on all issues, as and when they arise, happen along with important legislative work too? Is the government shying away from debate, or is the opposition still in election mode? We'll take that question to our guests in just a bit. First up, let's break down what the Prime Minister said in detail. Narendra Modi slammed the opposition for making repeated attempts to silence the elected government. He even went on to say that while speaking on the motion of thanks debate in Lok Sabha for 2.5 hours, an attempt was made to suppress the voice of the Prime Minister himself. He went on to accuse the opposition of hindering government's ability to fulfill its duties as it continued to disrupt House proceedings. Prime Minister accused the opposition of misleading the people during the election campaign and said that while they fought bitterly at that time, the campaign is over now and they must all work for the country. Taking a jibe, Prime Minister reminded MPs that it's their time to fight for the nation, not for a party. Prime Minister appealed to MPs that the nation needs progressive ideology and not negativity. Remember, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman is all set to table the much-awaited budget tomorrow. But before that, the government tabled its economic survey, which suggested that the Indian economy is on a strong wicket and has solidified its post-COVID recovery. The survey also projected India to grow at a rate of 6.5 to 7%. Here are some other key highlights that are bound to be a matter of debate as this session progresses. First up, inflation rate is largely under control, says the survey, although rate of some specific food items is high. Youth unemployment rate decreased from 17.8% in 2017-18 to 10% in 2022-23, accompanied by a rise in youth participation in labour force. Weather-related challenges have impacted agricultural sector, leading to lower farm outputs and escalating food prices. The survey stated that the Indian economy needs to generate an average of nearly 78.5 lakh jobs annually until 2030 in the non-farm sector to cater to the rising workforce. The survey pointed out that India's banking and financial sectors have displayed a stellar performance in the financial year gone by in mobilizing funds to fuel economic growth with financial inclusion. The survey states, though, that the central government not only needs to come up with policy interventions to boost private capital expenditure, but that this will also need support from state governments. The economic survey says Manrega demand is not a true indicator of quote-unquote rural distress. Despite high rural unemployment, states like Bihar and UP utilized less of their Manrega funds than states with lower poverty levels such as Tamil Nadu and Kerala. The biggest battleground on economy has been job creation. The government has been very defensive on this. They've maintained that jobs are no more a concern now than they have always been. Now, this is the data of unemployment from CMIE. For most part of UPA years, it says unemployment rate hovered around 5.5%. The data says from there to now, the figures have risen to around 8% in 2020 and 9% plus in 2024. It is, of course, important to point out here that this is the CMI data and the government does not officially accept this data as accurate. But the big debate that's coming up is this. We're bound to have some debate on budget. Overall, though, is the opposition still making the mistake of being in election mode? So, instead of being constructive work in Parliament, is it becoming more disruption oriented? That's coming up with our guests.
ढाई घंटे तक देश के प्रधानमंत्री का गला घोंटने का, उनकी आवाज को रोकने का, उनकी आवाज को दबाने का। देशवासियों ने हमें यहां देश के लिए भेजा है, दल के लिए नहीं भेजा। उस सामर्थ्य को लेकर के जितनी लड़ाई लड़नी थी लड़ ली, लेकिन अब वो दौर समाप्त हुआ। ये बजट अमृत काल का एक महत्वपूर्ण बजट है। विकसित भारत का जो हमारा सपना है, उस सपने को पूरा करने की मजबूत नींव वाला बजट लेकर के हम कल देश के सामने आएंगे।
The Indian examination system is a fraud. That is what is at stake here.
आमदनी अठन्नी खर्चा रुपया हो गया है, हर चीज का दाम दुगना हो चुका है। केंद्र सरकार उसको कंट्रोल करने में नाकामयाब रही है।
Let's go across to our guest joining us. Gopal Agarwal is national spokesperson of the BJP. Arshpreet Kadial is joining us from the Congress party. I'm also joined by economists Sachin Sharma and Abhishek Rajaram. I do thank you all for your time. Let me begin with Arshpreet first. The Prime Minister is saying the elections are over, campaigning is over. It's time now to do what politicians or legislators are elected to do, which is focus on the matters that concern the country, but also get on with their work in Parliament. And disruption is only one of the means that the opposition may employ. The rest should be a healthy debate. Your first response on the fact that we saw in the last session, even the Prime Minister's speech being booed and sloganeered against throughout.
Thank you for the question, Shivani. Please allow me a minute and a half uninterrupted. First and foremost is that the message that has been given by Mr. Modi that we should put Desh before Dal, this should have been conveyed to the Bharatiya Janata Party's leadership first, because the Bharatiya Janata Party has still not come out of the election mode. We saw that the Trump ankle that the Bharatiya Janata Party drew, they're still in that mode. And number two is that the budget this time should not discriminate between BJP-ruled states and opposition-ruled states. We've all seen how the opposition-ruled states are subjected to stepmotherly treatment. And number three, the Bharatiya Janata Party ought to make sure that this budget of theirs is unlike the previous ones, which are high on rhetoric and low on substance. They ought to announce a legal guarantee for the MSP. They ought to announce a farm loan waiver, because if they can waive off 16 lakh crores of the corporates, they can definitely waive off much less of the farmers. And the reason as to why we are asking for this is because when Mr. Modi wasn't the Prime Minister, he was the Chief Minister. He had said it himself, MSP should be given as a legal guarantee. And after that, when the farm laws were withdrawn, where the BJP government made a U-turn on that, they apologized for that. After 700 farmers were martyred, the BJP had made 6 promises to the farmers, which remain undelivered, because of which the farmers again had to go back on the street.
I'll come to the budget. I am yet to kickstart the budget section of it. But my question was, isn't the opposition running the risk of being in election mode, maybe buoyed by the election results a bit too much, where they feel that the message is to forever keep the country embroiled in that election mode? Maybe it's time to move on.
We have already moved out of the election mode. We are ensuring that the Bharatiya Janata Party gives priority to governance and not their government and not their politics, because we've all
But
seen
in that case, Arshpreet, you got to listen to the Prime Minister, no? Let's face it, he's not wrong when the Prime Minister says his entire speech for the motion of thanks was disrupted.
Well, the fact of the matter is, Shivani, that back-to-back terror attacks are happening, but Mr. Modi hasn't uttered a word about Jammu and Kashmir. back-to-back incidents are happening of violence in Manipur, in Tripura. Despite that, Mr. Modi hasn't uttered a word. And we have all witnessed how the Bharatiya Janata Party's government has been indulging in propaganda. The Trump angle is one, the Maratha reservation
All of
is
that
second.
happened after his
I mean,
speech that I'm referring to. But
if I'm just
my point is that while the Prime Minister is speaking, if he's going to be drowned out, like we saw that he was, there is, of course, a risk that the opposition is running that, you know, even the points, legitimate points that you are wanting to raise, people might get a little cheesed off with it. But anyways, I will give Gopal Agarwal an opportunity to respond to what Arshpreet is saying. And overall, what the opposition says, that we've heard a lot of this, of what this government is doing, of what the vision is, for far too long. We want some specific answers now, and those are not forthcoming from the government, let alone the Prime Minister.
Shivani ji, we have to understand that what is democracy. It is, you have to give a chance for other party to speak out their mind and their action. You cannot say ki what the other person in democracy means, what you want him to say, he should say that. If the Prime Minister has spoken on several issues, you may not agree with him, but you have to listen to him. And that too on the floor of the House. If you are not able to even have that patience just to listen to the Prime Minister, then itself it shows that your respect for democracy, one thing. Second thing is, the government, people have given a mandate to the BJP and NDA to govern for the third time. It is what the government wants to do. It is our agenda, we expect, what we have said in our manifesto, what we think, what the people have given us the mandate to govern for, that we will implement. They can question it, but they will have to work through the democratic process. And what Prime Minister in today's morning lecture has very well said is, let us forget that and move towards building a strong economy, building a strong nation, building a strong leadership of India across the globe. Let us come out with a unified stand at least at the international platforms.
Okay.
That is basically expected in democracy. We may agree, at point we may have to agree to disagree, but that has to be also in a democratic process, which opposition in the last session did not show. They have to accept that the Prime Minister first responsibility to implement what we think has been given the mandate by the people.
Yeah, I think that whole discussion over what the mandate means now needs to rest. We've got to move on. There is an elected government. That elected government has to be able to deliver what it promised to the public. And I'm not sure, this is a larger debate that I don't have time for today. Does the opposition have a veto necessarily on what the government is doing or wanting to do? I don't think that's what parliamentary democracy is.
It is not
The
only
opposition,
on what to do, even to speak also they are saying Prime Minister should speak what we want him to speak on.
and at the time that they want. So, you know, that's a larger debate that we'll wait and see how this session progresses. But on the budget itself, let me go across to some of our specialists first, and I'll come back to our political guests. Abhishek, I'm coming to you first up. The biggest battleground, as I said earlier in the show, has been job creation, or quote-unquote jobless growth, or just how many jobs we're creating, or the unemployment data. On this, the government says that actually the picture is better than what some agencies may portray. What's your thought on that, and also what the Economic Service says on this today?
Good evening, everyone. So, what about the numbers? So, the government is in complete denial of the independent agencies, what they are saying. Now, if the independent agencies are saying it was 5%, now it is 8%, so the government wants to deny, they should come with their own numbers.
The government says that this data is not correct, or doesn't even have the correct statistics to make these assumptions.
See, this data was correct till 2014. There was no challenge. And what has happened in 2009 to 2014, when BJP was in opposition, everyone has seen that Parliament didn't function. They didn't allow it to function. And that time these data were correct. So these data were correct in 2014. Today, these data are not correct. Agree. There could be a possibility that these data are not correct. So they should come with their own data.
Where is the
Who is
alternative
stopping
data
from-
then? Yes. So the alternative
So
data that the government points out to is like employment fund, new accounts and things like that. What do you make of the, forget about, whose numbers may be correct. What do you make of the overall job scenario in the country? Is that the biggest challenge today?
See, recently we had seen many videos where for single job, for 10 jobs, for 100 jobs, thousands of people have gone. Plus, whenever there is a job opening by government job opening, we see lakhs and lakhs of students going for, or job aspirants going for creating ruckus in railway and buses and transport fails. So something which we say prataksh ko praman ki avashyakta nahi, which is obvious. You don't require a database or you don't require a data. It is obvious that unemployment is gradually increasing. Plus, government has stopped creating new jobs. Plus, there has been no PSU, which has come in last 10, 15 years. There is no bigger opening in jobs. So, job market has reached a saturation point.
Okay.
We need government focus for manufacturing and service sector. See, government has said in last 5 years, government has been saying that we are going to focus on manufacturing. And they had said that we will come with Make in India projects, we will come with Assemble in India, but that has to be done on a broader level. See, government focus on papers is on job creation. The actual result
Is not
varies
quite
with
there.
the
Okay.
vision.
So despite the PLIs and the others, the actual result is not desirable just yet. Sachin, you want to respond to that? Is it, it's interesting he's saying that when you can see certain realities around you, you don't really need data to prove your point. And then, of course, about larger focus on job creation in the manufacturing sector. Now, the government has for long been saying, look at our capex or what we have done. Is it a problem particularly of jobs alone or of quality jobs? That's the second question that is asked. Your take on the job scenario today.
Thank you for having me on the show, Shivani. First thing, I think it's important to understand whether we are talking about the government jobs or we are talking about
private jobs.
corporate jobs in general. When we get into all these kind of debates, I think most of the time the opposition's focus is by and large to target the government on creation of jobs on the government side of it. Now, it's very well important to understand for everybody that government cannot give job to 4.5 crore people who are passing out their higher education in the country, right? So the government is, and my view is very candid on this, that somewhere the government has introduced 1.25 lakh startups in the ecosystem under various policies that the government has framed. Now, these startups are providing a lot of job opportunities to people within the startup ecosystem. Now, the challenge is, which we need to understand, or rather, I would say that the government also has to look at this. You see, when we say unemployment, what we are saying is that technology is by and large taking over the normal environment. Now, when the technology is taking the job situations, it's just not a scenario that there is no jobs. The jobs of people who are not technologically skilled are actually losing the jobs. But at the same time, all the deep tech technologies, new technologies, they're also coming with new job opportunities. So if you look at all these sectors, aerospace, automobile sector, government, very recently PM spoke about global capability centers to be the focus during one of the election rallies. Now imagine if people are technically qualified, because India is no more seen as a nation which is cost, cost focused or cost evasive nation. Today, we are looked upon as a country which has a larger ecosystem of the startups. We are seen as a technology nation. We are seen as a nation who largely invest on the innovation, research, development. So the government is by and large focusing on building the GCC networks in India, which is $120 billion market.
No,
And
all of that
imagine-
is fine. I don't think the question is whether the government is doing that or not. The question is that there is one India, which is this highly skilled India, which is creating these jobs or need these jobs. There's another India which doesn't have enough jobs. And there is a skill gap that the industry also keeps talking about. Maybe that's where the concern is. And is that concern legitimate, Sachin?
I think I would say 50% it is, because the government has a very strong focus on the skill development side of it, right? I mean, if you go to Northeast, you see a lot of skill development programs going on. If you go to the Uttar Pradesh, you will see a lot of skill development programs going on. There are NGOs who are being engaged in building these programs. Now, we have to also be very honest that if a person doesn't even know how to appear in an interview, right, that person will definitely not get a job. So I think it is also responsibility of the citizens to keep upgrading themselves on different knowledges and different skill set to be able to get jobs. That's my.
I agree
my
with you on one thing, at least, that it is no longer, I don't think the government has shied away from this fact that it is no longer the government's job to give you a job. In the sense, aspirants who only want government jobs are going to face disappointment because the governments cannot keep expanding and PSUs cannot keep coming up every 10 years, 15 years. That is just bloated government. That I don't think that this government is in any way not very clear about where they stand on that. They want the private ecosystem to do this, but is there enough in the private ecosystem that is being done? Ashpreet, I'm coming to you. Job creation, what is it that you're looking forward to from the budget?
Well, number one, doubling of farmers' income was promised by the Bharatiya Janata Party. It was supposed to be done by 2022. Instead of doubling the farmers' income, they have doubled up the suicides. Since 2013, more than 1 lakh suicides have been witnessed by the farmers. Number two, we expect that the MSP would be given as a legal guarantee. Number three, the farm loan waivers. A permanent commission ought to be set up, and we are demanding this because the Bharatiya Janata Party waived off loans of willful loan defaulters too. Vijay Mallya, Mehul Choksi, Nirav Modi, top 50 willful bank loan defaulters. Their loans have been waived off.
Were the loans waived off? Their money was recovered through their properties.
I'm sorry,
These are individuals who have been declared economic fugitives.
No. I'll tell you what. Around 60,000 crores were waived off of top 50 willful bank loan defaulters. And these three,
write-offs and waive-offs are different things.
I'm talking of waive-off, and I can show you the report.
As far as the likes of the Mallyas and the Choksis are concerned, they are economic offenders whose properties have been seized to recover their loan amounts due.
I'm not talking of write-offs. I'm talking of a waive-off. And number two, the Bharatiya Janata Party's government needs to be credited for, Mr. Modi instead should be credited for one thing. His attendance in the parliament has improved because back in the day in 2021, he had merely given 4 hours allegedly to the parliament. And this time it's comparatively better. We hope Mr. Modi would also start doing press conferences and would start addressing the issues of the people, would tell the farmers as to why have they not delivered the promises that were made to them. The Jumla Patra of 2014 consisted of MSP should be given. The Jumla Patra of the Bharatiya Janata Party in 2019 also
You've
said the
mentioned
same
the
thing.
farm sector issues. I was asking you about job creation that obviously involves non-farm as well. And that is where you're coming to that. I'll give you 30 more seconds.
Yeah, see, the Bharatiya Janata Party had promised 2 crore jobs in a year. It's been 10 years since they formed government. And the Bharatiya Janata Party should tell us where are 20 crore jobs. Instead of delivering these many jobs, they have snatched away jobs because the BJP's misgovernance.
Yeah, so I asked you, what is it that you would like the finance minister to present on the job front? But I'm out of time now, Ashpreet, unfortunately. I have to give a minute or so to Gopalji to respond as well. Gopalji, first of all, I think, it would be nice to accept there is a problem, only then can we have a fruitful discussion. The response from the government usually is that there is no problem on the job front. Is it time for the government to concede that there are certain realities it's been kind of shoving under the carpet?
No, Shivani ji, we have to understand that we have never shied away from the challenges that the economy faces. If we are talking about job creation or employment generation or skill development, capacity building, providing infrastructure spent through capex from the PSUs or government spending to create demand and come for PLI scheme for manufacturing, etc. This is for creation of job. So we have never denied that the employment generation is a challenge for the country and the economy. Whenever we talk about employment generation or number of employment generation, it is just to tell what we are doing for that meeting that challenges. Agriculture sector, we have never denied that agriculture sector has some many challenges. Therefore, we came out with 4 important agriculture bills, land reform bills. It is the opposition which in their overzeal to politicize the issues have created false narration about agriculture reforms that we wanted to take, land reforms, they completely sabotaged it. Then there are different schemes that they want to sabotage it. We have never shied away that agriculture needs big reforms. We have never shied away from
So
labor
this budget, the focus will again be, yes.
Even if you go today economic survey, it clearly mentions about certain challenges that the economy faces, global challenges, domestic challenges. So we have never denied, but we have said that we have achieved over last 10 years where macroeconomic parameters are quite healthy. If we are coming with more than 7 to 8% GDP growth rate, that has to be accepted. If our Niti Aayog is creating a report giving data about 12.5 crore job creation, this month's 19.5 lakh informal sector came to the formal sector to Provident Fund and ESI registration. So these data say that the government is well versed about the challenges. We take cognizance of them and working on them. But the way is to grow the economy. It is not just we start crying on these things and do nothing. We are doing and growing economy, making the economic strength of the country, manufacturing sector, infrastructure sector, startup ecosystem, defense sector. I can go on list how much defense sector, which was dependent 90% of import, has now feeding domestically 68% of the...
Okay, no, fair enough. Like I said, one, the nuance in the job question is the quality of the jobs on offer. Secondly, the wish list of the public being of a certain kind of a job, while the government insisting that there are so many other kinds of jobs available in the market. Not the ones that were in vogue, let's say 20 years ago. I've got a minute left. I want to give Sachin and Abhishek both 30 seconds. Abhishek, on the question of private sector spending. This is a question that has been talked about for the last 5 years at least. What is the problem here? Do you see this changing anytime soon? Very quickly, sir.
The way it has been done or it has been going on, no change is expected because the ecosystem and the environment needs to be changed for any drastic update. It will continue like this only.
By ecosystem, you need what? You mean what?
See, the way the laws are there, the way the environment is in India, it will continue. Nothing is going to change. See, when you talk about the private sector investment.
So he did Abhishek ji at one point of time.
Gopal,
5 seconds. At one point of time, Abhishek ji, you are saying that we don't need data. We need data for stability. All the macroeconomic parameters are so healthy, and then you are denying them. It is not only domestic institutions giving this data. International institutions are accepting the growth rate.
Okay, let him respond. Let him respond.
Gopalji, the problem with the BJP particularly is that their schemes are very good on papers. The execution is not as good as the schemes are. The best scheme is startup scheme. A great scheme was Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, where technically people should have been skilled, but the end result
is not sufficient.
Not
okay. All right. I've got limited time, so can I just give Sachin 30 seconds on the private expenditure issue? Why is the private sector seemingly still hesitant that even the economic survey is talking about?
It's because of the very recent recession that we are facing from US, and there is market slowdown. I think that could be one of the reasons. But going forward, there is a huge commitment from the private sector side, and I think the government has to hold hands with these private sector. They have to build certain PPP programs wherein the government actually go ahead and make certain investment, because it is important to understand that certain deep tech, sectors like aerospace, like urban mobility, uh, a private sector would not like to immediately get their hands, dirty into this. So the government has to take the first step. They have to make initial investments to ensure that there is risk covered for these people. Once
Okay.
there is a program like this, then I believe, private equity investors, they will definitely come into the picture and make an investment and create
Right.
jobs.
What the economic survey is also reminding us, or what we sometimes forget in the political din, is that the Indian economy is not just a central budget. So many things that matter to us are also part of state economies. And somehow state economies escape most of the questions or the burdens that come with the expectations of so many other things related to economy around budget time. So we've got to kind of have a more wholesome view on this. I do thank our guests for joining us for our first debate.